An unfamiliar woman anxiously grabbed my arm at the airport terminal and whispered, "I need your help. Please pretend to be my husband for the next 40 minutes. For a second, I thought she had mistaken me for someone else. I looked around, expecting her to apologize and walk away, but instead, she tightened her grip on my sleeve. Her hands were trembling, and her eyes kept darting toward the airport entrance as if she was terrified someone would appear at any moment. I had never seen her before, yet the fear on her face felt painfully real. "I know this sounds crazy," she said under her breath, "but I promise I'll explain later. Right now, I just need you to trust me." Every sensible part of my mind told me to refuse. Airports are full of security cameras, strangers, and unexpected situations. Getting involved in someone else's problem seemed like the worst possible decision. But there was something about her desperate expression that stopped me from walking away. She didn't look dangerous. She looked frightened. Before I could answer, she slipped her hand into mine and leaned her head slightly toward my shoulder, as if we had been together for years. A middle-aged couple walked past us without giving us a second glance. That's when I noticed two men standing near a coffee shop across the terminal. They weren't talking to each other, but both of them seemed to be watching in our direction. "Smile," she whispered without moving her lips. "What?" "Please just smile." I forced an awkward smile, feeling completely out of place. She gave a quiet sigh of relief. "My name is Emma," she said softly. "I'm Daniel." "Thank you, Daniel." We began walking slowly toward the departure gates. She kept holding my hand naturally, occasionally glancing up at me as though we were having a normal conversation. I tried to play along, even though my heart was pounding. "So, are those men following you?" I asked. "I'll explain once we're somewhere safer." We stopped in front of a departure screen. She pretended to check the flight information while secretly watching the reflection in the glass. After a few seconds, she frowned. "They're still there." I looked without turning my head too much. The same two men had moved closer. They weren't running or acting suspiciously, but their eyes never seemed to leave us. "Who are they?" I asked quietly. "I honestly don't know," she admitted. "But they've been following me since I landed this morning." My confusion only grew. "Did you call the police?" "I couldn't." "Why not?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "Not yet." Her answer raised even more questions, but I could tell she wasn't ready to explain. She suggested we walk toward a nearby cafe inside the terminal. We ordered 2 coffees simply to avoid looking suspicious. As we sat across from each other, she finally relaxed enough to take a deep breath. "I owe you an explanation," she said. "You definitely do." She managed a small smile, the first genuine expression I had seen from her. "My father passed away 3 months ago. Before he died, he left me something important. Since then, strange people have been trying to contact me. At first, I ignored them. Then, they started appearing wherever I traveled." "What did your father leave you?" She looked around before answering. "I don't know exactly. He only gave me a small envelope and told me never to hand it over to anyone unless I discovered the truth behind it." She reached into her handbag for just a moment, letting me glimpse a sealed brown envelope before slipping it back inside. "That envelope?" I whispered. She nodded. "I think that's what they're after." At that moment, one of the men slowly entered the cafe. He wasn't looking directly at us, but he chose a table close enough to keep us in sight. Emma's face turned pale. "Don't panic," I said quietly, trying to sound calmer than I felt. "I wasn't expecting them to come in here." Without warning, she reached across the table and gently held my hand again. Anyone watching would assume we were a married couple sharing a quiet moment before boarding our flight. The man glanced toward us briefly before pretending to check his phone. Emma leaned closer. They believe I'm traveling alone, she whispered. As long as they think you're my husband, they might hesitate. I swallowed nervously. You're asking a complete stranger to risk getting involved. I know, she said, her voice barely audible. And if you want to leave, I'll understand. I looked into her frightened eyes. She wasn't trying to manipulate me. She was simply hoping someone would believe her long enough to help. Outside the cafe windows, passengers hurried toward their gates, children laughed, boarding announcements echoed through the terminal, and life continued as if nothing unusual was happening. Yet somehow, in the middle of that ordinary airport, I had become part of a mystery that had begun long before I arrived. I had agreed to pretend to be her husband for 40 minutes. I had no idea those 40 minutes would change both of our lives forever. The moment we stepped out of the cafe, Emma slipped her hand through my arm again. To everyone around us, we looked like an ordinary married couple waiting for a flight. Inside, however, neither of us felt calm. The airport announcements echoed overhead, passengers hurried toward their gates, and rolling suitcases clicked across the polished floor. Amid the busy crowd, I kept noticing the same two men following us from a distance. Don't look back, Emma whispered. They're still behind us. I nodded without turning my head. We need a plan. Our flight isn't for another hour, she replied. If we can stay in public places until then, they might give up. I wasn't convinced. The men didn't look like people who would simply walk away. They were patient, careful, and always managed to stay close without attracting attention. We wandered into a bookstore near the departure gates. Emma picked up a travel magazine and pretended to read it while I stood beside her, acting as though we were discussing vacation plans. I wasn't completely honest earlier, she admitted quietly. I looked at her. My father didn't just leave me an envelope. He left me a key. A key? She reached into her purse and showed me a small silver key attached to an old leather keychain. It looked ordinary, but the way she held it suggested it meant everything to her. He told me it opened something important, she said. He never explained what. And the envelope? It contains the location. Before I could ask another question, one of the men entered the bookstore. He slowly walked through the shelves, pretending to browse, but it was obvious he was watching us. Come on, I said. We quietly left through the opposite side of the store and blended into a crowd heading toward another terminal. For several minutes, we managed to lose sight of the men. Emma finally let out a relieved breath. I think we lost them. Just then my phone buzzed. A message appeared from an unknown number. Leave the woman. This doesn't concern you. A chill ran down my spine. How did they get my number? I muttered. Emma looked at the screen, and the color drained from her face. They know who you are now. Seconds later, another message arrived. You have one chance. Walk away. I immediately switched off my phone. This is getting serious, I said. Emma looked guilty. You shouldn't have gotten involved. I already did. For the first time since we'd met, she smiled with gratitude. Thank you. We headed toward the airport chapel, one of the quietest places in the terminal. Only a few travelers sat inside. It gave us a chance to think. Emma carefully opened the brown envelope just enough for me to see a folded map and a handwritten note. What does it say? I asked. She unfolded the paper. In neat handwriting, it read, Trust no one until you reach locker 27. The truth is waiting there. Locker 27? I repeated. She nodded. My father rented a storage locker before he died. I think this key belongs to it. Do you know where it is? She pointed to the map. It isn't in this airport. It's in the city. So all of this is about whatever is inside that locker. I believe so. Before we could say anything else, footsteps echoed outside the chapel. Emma carefully slipped the note and key back into her bag. The same two men walked past the entrance, scanning every face inside. They hadn't seen us yet. "We have to move," I whispered. Using another exit, we quietly slipped back into the terminal. My pulse was racing. I had started the day expecting an ordinary business trip, but now I was helping a complete stranger protect a secret that someone seemed desperate to obtain. As we reached the security checkpoint for departing passengers, an airport security officer approached us. "Excuse me, sir, ma'am." Both of us froze. "May I see your boarding passes?" Emma handed ours over with steady hands. The officer smiled politely after checking them. "Thank you. Your gate has changed. You'll now depart from gate B18. He returned our passes and walked away. Emma sighed with relief. For a second, I thought. So did I. We quickly headed toward the new gate. When we arrived, it was crowded with families, tourists, and business travelers. It felt much safer than the quieter areas of the terminal. Then I noticed something. The two men weren't alone anymore. A third person had joined them. Unlike the others, this man wore an expensive suit and carried himself with quiet confidence. He wasn't searching the crowd. He was looking directly at Emma. She followed my gaze, and the moment she saw him, her expression changed completely. "No," she whispered. "You know him?" Her voice trembled. "He worked for my father." "What?" "I trusted him." The man gave her a calm smile from across the waiting area, as if he had finally found exactly what he had been looking for. Emma slowly stepped behind me. "I think," she said in a barely audible voice, "he knows I still have the key." Before I could respond, the boarding announcement echoed through the terminal, and passengers began lining up at gate B18. I had hoped boarding the plane would finally end the nightmare. Instead, it felt like the most dangerous part of our journey was only just beginning. The boarding announcement echoed through the terminal, and passengers began forming a line at gate B18. Emma stood close beside me, her fingers wrapped tightly around my hand. Across the waiting area, the well-dressed man who had once worked for her father watched us with an expression that was impossible to read. He wasn't rushing toward us. He simply waited, confident that we had nowhere to go. "Stay calm," I whispered. Emma nodded, though I could feel her hands trembling. We joined the boarding line with the other passengers. Families chatted excitedly about their vacations, children laughed, and flight attendants welcomed everyone with friendly smiles. The ordinary atmosphere made it difficult to believe that we were caught in such an extraordinary situation. As we reached the boarding gate, the suited man slowly walked forward. For a terrifying moment, I thought he was about to stop us. Instead, an airport security officer approached him first and politely asked to see his boarding pass. The brief conversation delayed him just long enough for Emma and me to board the aircraft. Only after we reached our seats did we finally breathe a little easier. "I can't believe we made it," Emma whispered. "I don't think it's over." She knew I was right. The flight lasted less than an hour. Neither of us slept. Emma spent most of the journey staring out the window, while I kept replaying everything that had happened since she first grabbed my arm in the terminal. None of it made sense yet. When we landed, we left the airport with the other passengers and took a taxi to the address marked on the map inside the envelope. It led us to an old railway station that had been converted into a secure storage facility many years earlier. The building looked quiet and almost forgotten. "This is it," Emma said. Inside, an elderly manager greeted us warmly. "Can I help you?" Emma hesitated before placing the silver key on the counter. "I believe my father rented a locker here." The manager examined the key carefully. His expression changed immediately. "I remember your father," he said softly. "He visited only once after renting the locker. He told me to give access only to the person carrying this key." He led us down a narrow hallway until we stopped in front of locker 27. Emma's hand shook as she inserted the key. With a quiet click, the lock opened. Inside was a small metal box, several old documents, family photographs, and a handwritten letter resting neatly on top. Emma carefully unfolded the letter. "My dearest Emma," it began, "if you're reading this, it means you trusted your instincts and reached this place safely. Everything people are searching for is not money or treasure. It's the truth." She continued reading silently before handing me the letter. Her father explained that years earlier, he had uncovered financial fraud involving several powerful business partners. Rather than exposing them immediately, he gathered evidence to protect innocent people who would otherwise lose everything. He had hidden the documents until someone he trusted could reveal the truth safely. "So that's why they've been following you," I said quietly. Emma nodded. "They wanted these documents." Just then, footsteps echoed through the hallway. We looked toward the entrance. The suited man stood there alone. He slowly raised both hands to show he wasn't carrying a weapon. "Emma," he said calmly, "please listen before you judge me." She stepped protectively in front of the metal box. "You betrayed my father." "No," he replied sadly. "I was trying to protect him." Neither of us spoke. "The two men following you don't work for me," he continued. "I've been trying to reach you before they did." Before Emma could answer, loud voices came from outside the building. The two men had found us. The storage manager immediately locked the front entrance and called the police. Minutes felt like hours as everyone waited in silence. Soon, police vehicles arrived outside. Officers entered the building, questioned everyone, and detained the two men after discovering they had been using false identities while attempting to recover the hidden documents. Over the following weeks, investigators examined the evidence from locker 27. The documents confirmed years of financial crimes, and several powerful people were held accountable. Emma's father's name was finally cleared, and the truth he had protected for so long became public. One evening, after everything was finally over, Emma invited me to the same airport where our story had begun. We sat near the large windows overlooking the runway as airplanes disappeared into the sunset. She smiled. "Do you remember the first thing I ever said to you?" I laughed. "How could I forget?" She looked down for a moment before meeting my eyes. "I asked you to pretend to be my husband for 40 minutes. And somehow," I replied, "those 40 minutes completely changed my life." She nodded. "They changed mine too." There was no fear left in her eyes now, only peace, gratitude, and hope for the future. What had started as a desperate request from a frightened stranger in a crowded airport had become an unforgettable journey built on trust, courage, and unexpected friendship. Sometimes life changes in a single moment, and sometimes the person you meet by pure chance becomes the one who helps you find your way forward. Our story had begun with a lie meant to keep us safe, but it ended with honesty, freedom, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.